This is the reason your owner's manual says 0W-20 only, while the exact same engine sold in Europe or Australia allows 5W-30. If you've ever wondered whether thin oil is actually safe for your engine, or if this is just some fuel economy trick, you're asking the right question. A 2017 Toyota Camry sold in the United States comes with a manual that says 0W-20 only, with no alternatives listed anywhere. That same Camry engine gets shipped to Europe or Australia, and suddenly the manual shows approved weights from 0W-20 all the way up to 10W-40 depending on climate. Same engine, same manufacturer, completely different oil recommendations. What's actually going on here? Today we're going to break down the real reason behind this regional difference, and I'll explain exactly what the numbers on your oil bottle mean, why American regulations pushed manufacturers toward thinner oil, and whether you should actually worry about engine wear. Before we can understand why different regions specify different oils, we need to understand what those numbers actually tell us. That W in 0W-20 or 5W-30 stands for winter, and it's all about cold temperature testing. The first number, the one before the W, tells you how the oil behaves when it's cold. 0W oil gets tested at -35 degrees Celsius and maintains flow down to -40 Fahrenheit, while 5W oil gets tested at -30 Celsius and flows down to about -35 Fahrenheit. Lower numbers mean thinner oil at cold temperatures, which translates to faster flow during cold starts. The second number after the W tells you how the oil behaves at operating temperature. A 20-grade oil has a kinematic viscosity range of 6.9 to 9.3 centistokes at 100 degrees Celsius, and a 30-grade runs thicker at 9.3 to 12.5 centistokes at the same temperature. Higher numbers mean thicker oil when your engine is hot, which theoretically creates a stronger protective film between metal surfaces. Here's something most people don't realize about multi-grade oils. They use special additives called viscosity index improvers, oil-soluble polymers that actually change their behavior based on temperature. When it's cold, these polymer molecules coil up into small balls and flow easily, but when it's hot, they expand into long chain structures that resist the oil's natural tendency to thin out. A 5W-30 isn't made by mixing SAE5 and SAE30 oils together. It's made by adding these viscosity improvers to approximately a 5W base oil, and these additives can make up 5 to 20% of the finished product. So if both oil weights work, why does your American car specifically require the thinner one? The answer comes down to 3 letters, CAFE, which stands for Corporate Average Fuel Economy. Back in 1975, after the Arab oil embargo triggered an energy crisis, Congress passed the Energy Policy and Conservation Act and created CAFE standards. Passenger cars had to hit 18 miles per gallon by 1978. And by 1985, that target reached 27.5 miles per gallon. And that's when something interesting happened. From 1985 to 2010, for 25 years, those standards stayed essentially frozen. Passenger cars remained at 27.5 miles per gallon, and manufacturers faced no regulatory pressure to squeeze out extra fuel economy. Everything changed in 2007 when the Energy Independence and Security Act set a new target of 35 miles per gallon by 2020. And then the Obama administration started requiring 5% annual increases. The 2025 target for passenger cars sits at 53.4 miles per gallon. This is where oil viscosity enters the picture. When manufacturers certify their vehicles for EPA fuel economy testing, they use the specified oil, and by recommending 0W-20 instead of 5W-30, they capture a small but real fuel economy improvement that gets baked into the window sticker MPG rating. Honda's research, published in a 1999 SAE technical paper numbered 1999-01-3468, found that 0W-20 provided a 1.5% fuel economy improvement compared to 5W-30 without compromising anti-wear performance. That paper became the foundational study that convinced manufacturers this approach could work. 1.5% doesn't sound like much on its own. But here's the thing. When you're trying to hit increasingly aggressive CAFE targets and dealing with penalties that reached $15 to $17 per tenth of an MPG per vehicle by 2022, every fraction of a percent matters. Now we get to the really interesting part, because Europe has different priorities entirely. American oil specifications come from the API, the American Petroleum Institute, and ILSAC, a joint committee of American and Japanese automakers whose current top specification is APISP and ILSACGF6, introduced in May 2020. Europe uses a completely different system called ACEA, the Association des Constructeurs Européens d'Automobiles, and their specifications have fundamentally different requirements. The biggest difference comes down to something called HTHS viscosity, which stands for high temperature, high shear. This measurement tells you how thick your oil stays at 150 degrees Celsius. That's 302 Fahrenheit, under extreme shearing forces, simulating what happens in your bearings and valve train under the most demanding conditions. Here's the number that matters most. A typical 0W-20 meeting ILSACGF6A has an HTHS of around 2.6 to 2.8 centipoise, with a minimum requirement of 2.6. A 5W-30 meeting European ACEA C3 specifications requires a minimum of 3.5 centipoise, which works out to roughly a 35% thicker protective film at extreme temperatures. European specifications also assume longer drain intervals, with 15,000 to 20,000 kilometers being standard over there compared to 5,000 to 10,000 miles here. Different driving patterns play a role too, because sustained high-speed driving on the Autobahn at 130 kilometers per hour or more demands that robust oil film. When you see the same engine with different oil specs in different regions, it's not that one recommendation is wrong. Different regulatory frameworks just prioritize different things, with the US system prioritizing fuel economy while the European system prioritizes high temperature protection and extended service life. A question I get all the time is whether manufacturers actually changed anything about their engines to make thinner oil work. The answer is yes, but probably not in the way you think. There's a persistent myth floating around that modern engines have tighter clearances requiring thinner oil. But when you actually compare the specifications, that's not really true. One analysis compared a 1985 Honda Accord to a 2012 Honda Accord, and connecting rod oil clearance in 1985 ran 0.0008 to 0.0015 inches, while the 2012 model came in at 0.00126 to 0.00260 inches. The clearances turned out similar, if anything slightly larger on the newer engine. What has changed is surface treatments and materials. Modern engines use crankshafts that are stiffer and more rigid with much smoother micro-polished journal surfaces. DLC coatings, that's diamond-like carbon, now appear on valve lifters, piston rings, wrist pins, and timing chain components. Polymer coatings and crank bearings provide sacrificial protection if the oil film ever fails momentarily. And thermal spray cylinder bore coatings have replaced traditional cast iron liners. One engineer put it this way: the better manufacturers have had to make a large number of changes to engine internals to get adequate service life with ultra-thin oils. The engineering changes enabling thin oils are primarily about surface treatments and materials science, not tighter clearances. Now let's address the elephant in the room, because the debate over whether 0W-20 is actually safe for your engine long-term is real, and reasonable people disagree. On one side, you have skeptics who point out the obvious conflict of interest. One forum user put it bluntly, saying there is a reason all manufacturers are switching to 0W-20 fuel economy or getting their CAFE higher so they look better to the EPA. And it's not because they found 0W-20 to be the absolute best oil ever. Another commenter noted that 0W-20 is fine but provides the least amount of protection amongst the higher viscosity oils, simply because it's thinner and doesn't provide as much film strength. A legitimate technical point backs this up. A 2015 academic study found that 0W-20 with an HTHS of 2.8 centipoise shows the presence of metal-to-metal contact for full load operation. That same study found friction reduction of about 8% at idle with thin oil, but no friction reduction at higher power output where hydrodynamic lubrication dominates. On the other side, defenders of thin oil point to the track record. Manufacturers have been specifying 5W-20 and 0W-20 since the early 2000s, with Honda starting on the 2000 Insight, Toyota moving to 0W-20 synthetic around 2009 and 2010, and GM requiring it for their EcoTech 3V8 engines starting in 2014. That's over 20 years of real-world use without an epidemic of engine failures. The warranty question turns out more nuanced than people think. Under the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, manufacturers have to prove that incorrect oil directly caused a failure. They can't just deny a claim because you used a different viscosity. One commenter with 50 years of experience said he'd never heard a first-hand story of an engine warranty claim being denied due to oil viscosity issues. My take on all this is that 0W-20 provides adequate protection for engines designed for it under normal driving conditions. But if you're towing heavy loads, driving in extreme heat, or doing track days, 0W-20, the physics suggests that a higher HTHS oil provides a better margin of safety. That 35% difference in film strength at extreme temperatures isn't nothing. Here's what might surprise you, because 0W-20 isn't the end point. The industry is already moving to even thinner oils. 0W-16 has been widely available since May 2020 with ILSAC GF6B, and Toyota now specifies it for the RAV4. Camry 4-cylinder, Corolla, Highlander, and Venza, with a fuel economy benefit over 0W-20 of about 2%. It goes further than that. The 2023 Toyota Corolla with the 2.0-liter M20A FKS engine specifies 0W-8, essentially water-thin oil, and Japan has been using ultra-low viscosity oils like this since the late 1990s. As of March 2025, the new API SQ and ILSAC GF7 specifications officially license both 0W-12 and 0W-8 grades. BMW already introduced a 0W-12 specification in 2022 for their B48 and B58 engines, especially in hybrids. And the next specification, called ILSAC GF8, is expected around 2028 with even lower viscosity likely. Hybrids present their own challenges too. These engines experience more cold starts under high load, run at lower average operating temperatures, and deal with water and fuel accumulating in the crankcase. Companies like Valvoline, Castrol, and Mobil already sell hybrid-specific oils designed to address these issues. As for electric vehicles, they'll eventually reduce demand for engine oil, but it's a slow transition. 1.4 billion internal combustion vehicles remain in operation globally, and projections suggest ICE vehicles will still make up 75% or more of the global fleet through 2040. So let's bring this full circle. Your American car specifies 0W-20 primarily because of CAFE regulations, not because engineers determined it was the absolute best oil for engine longevity. The same engine sold elsewhere often allows 5W-30 because their regulations prioritize high-temperature protection over marginal fuel economy gains. The critical technical difference is HTHS viscosity. US spec 0W-20 provides minimum 2.6 centipoise protection, while European ACEAC 5W-30 requires 3.5, and that works out to a 35% thicker protective film when things get extreme. Does that mean you should ignore your owner's manual and run 5W-30? Probably not, because your engine was designed and tested with 0W-20, and for most driving conditions it works fine. But if you understand the engineering trade-offs, you can make an informed decision based on how you actually use your vehicle. The real takeaway is this: the numbers on your oil bottle aren't just marketing, they represent genuine engineering compromises between fuel economy, cold start protection, and high-temperature film strength. Different regions simply prioritize those factors differently, and now you know why.